But I have gained so much from this sort of forced groundedness, this sort of halt in my, what I thought would be my new digital nomad lifestyle. Recently, I have come across videos on YouTube about people sharing how they pursued the digital nomad lifestyle and then what they learned, what they encountered, and why they chose to stop being digital nomads. So I thought I want to share my story because that is all well and good when it's within your hands and within your control to decide you want to stop digital nomading. My story is a little bit different. Yes, the decision ultimately to stop digital nomading was my own, but I want to share with you the story of how my digital nomading career came to an end before it really even got off the ground, the parts of it that were not really within my control, and what I learned from it all, as well as the realities of the digital nomad lifestyle. I want to share this with you in case you are like me and you're seeing a lot of incredible success stories out there about people pursuing this amazing lifestyle as a digital nomad, and you just really want to get there. And maybe you're having some start stops. Maybe you are just struggling to find a way to get that digital nomad lifestyle off the ground for yourself. I want you to know that it doesn't always work out right away. Hopefully this inspires you to feel less alone if this is your story where you're trying to live the digital nomad lifestyle and it's not working for you yet, and to just continue to push on and be persistent if this is something you truly want. In 2019, I got divorced. In 2020, shortly before the world went into lockdown, I thought, all right, I'm ready to get back out there. I'm ready to start building community. And I ended up instead isolating alone in my Chicago apartment. This was a crash course in up-leveling my relationship with myself and my self-love. But eventually, after about a year of my company also going fully remote, right, because of the lockdown and things being so uncertain at that time, a lot of companies said, all right, we're all going to work remotely until further notice, until we know what's what. I loved this for the first year. And then toward the end of 2020, my company announced that for 2021, we also would be fully remote the entire year. And all of a sudden, my Chicago apartment that I loved, that I had spent all of this time and energy prettifying and putting, my unique touch on to make it a cozy space for me, I felt the walls start to close in on me. Unlike a lot of the people that I was working with, when I closed my computer down at the end of the day, I didn't have a family to cook for. I didn't have anyone waiting on me. I was by myself. And for the most part, don't get me wrong, I loved this. I like being on my own, but it was a lot. It was a lot to not really be allowed to go anywhere, not really be allowed to socialize, and then also to wake up in the morning, sign on to my job from my dining table, close for the day, make my dinner, watch TV, sleep, wake up, repeat. I started to feel like a zombie. I started to feel like a robot that was put away in this closet and then only pulled out every day to work and build this company up from 9 to 5, build someone else's dream, and then they're done with me for the evening and then see you back tomorrow. I just had a moment of, why am I living like this? And there's got to be more to life, and I don't have to live like this. I really had this desire within me to do long-term travel for a long time, but I just felt like it wasn't a possibility. How? Because I work a 9 to 5. But then when things started to shift, I think a lot of us realized, okay, life could look different. And so I put in a pitch to my boss, which essentially said, look, I'm going to go somewhere where I can get better views and some sunlight, but still be in the same time zone and work for you. You won't notice any difference at all. It was heading into winter time in Chicago, and I had just ordered one of those sunlight therapy lamps because I knew that we weren't going to have a lot of sun and it was going to get to me. I got approval from my boss to go to Costa Rica for a few months, and I returned that sun lamp, and I spent 4 months, it was supposed to be 3, but it extended to 4, living and working from Costa Rica, and my eyes opened, my world opened up, and I thought, okay, this is what I could be doing now. At the time, I was also part of a graduate master's program that had a lot of travel built in because we did global consulting projects around the world. So I thought, I'm just going to ride this wave and just wherever the program takes me, I am going to stay there for longer. I'm going to stay there for extended periods of time. Got the okay from my boss. Again, the world was different then, so I don't know that this would work now, but back then it was working, so I was leaning into it. When my lease expired on my apartment in October 2021, I did not renew it. I sold all of my things on Facebook and on Craigslist. And I decided I am now going to live the digital nomad lifestyle. Like, I went all in. I sold all of my things, put all my affairs in order. I didn't have a place anymore to live on my own in Chicago. And I went and I thought, this is it. This is my time to be a digital nomad, but it didn't last. For a while, it was great. I spent some time in Europe. I spent some time again in Costa Rica and then in Mexico. And then I came home to Chicago for a bit because there were things I needed to do. I was still getting my digital nomad legs, right? So I was coming home to sort of reset and then decide where to go next. But a series of events unfolded while I was home in 2022 that put the kibosh on my very short-lived digital nomad life. And these things happened all at once together. And I haven't really talked about this on any platform, so I'm gathering courage. The first thing that happened was I had this sort of weird physical reaction that turned out to be an autoimmune response to stress, according to my doctors. It really freaked me out. It was something that freaked me out enough to where I requested a medical leave from my 9-to-5 work for a bit to figure out what was going on, why this was happening, what my body was trying to tell me. But I didn't use that medical leave time to rest like I should have. Instead, I used it to put in really long days and hours into writing my thesis for my master's program so that I would graduate on time. I just barely got that sucker through in time for the deadline to be able to graduate on time, because I knew if I don't do this now, I am not going to do it later when I don't have this pressure of whether or not I'd be able to graduate weighing on me. Instead of using my medical leave time to de-stress and figure out what's going on with me and to check in with myself, I went really, really hard on writing my thesis. A couple weeks into this, the week before I went back to work after my leave, I found out that one of my really close loved ones received a very harsh health diagnosis. And so that sent me reeling, of course. Then I go back to work. And my first week back from medical leave, I find out that my position is being eliminated. And this was the time where a lot of layoffs were happening. And in a way, it was a blessing in disguise. I mean, in many ways, it was a blessing in disguise now looking back, but even at the time, because I had known for a long time that I wanted to work for myself one day. And I had just recently told my mom, hey, by the end of the year, I would love to be able to leave this job and doing my own thing and figuring it out and continuing to travel, because I was getting the sense that my work was not going to let me keep traveling for long, because now it was kind of the post-pandemic world and companies were starting to put their policies back in order and starting to understand how much flexibility they want to give or not with remote work. So the timer was about to go off and I wasn't ready to give up my travel lifestyle. So that was my plan, to leave, but to leave on my own terms. Once I got that news about the harsh health diagnosis of a loved one, I decided, well, I can't quit now. I think the universe was like, oh no, it's still your time to get out of this and to start your own thing. Push, laid off. So I finished my thesis in time, I graduated, but I wasn't going anywhere because there are choices we make when we decide we want to travel long term or move abroad and away from family. When we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. This is where, yes, the decision was mine, but also it didn't really feel like a decision based on my values and priorities at the time. A family member needed me, multiple family members needed me, and so I was going to stay. And it has not been easy. It took me a while to even get back to a place where I am traveling frequently or somewhat more frequently and for longer and longer periods of time. So I went from being full, like I'm a digital nomad, to not traveling at all, taking care of family, totally different priority shift. And then slowly now it's like I'm crawling and then walking and then getting my travel freedom back bit by bit. But I have gained so much from this sort of forced groundedness, this sort of halt in what I thought would be my new digital nomad lifestyle. So I want to share a little bit with you what I have learned, both during that short-lived period where I was doing the digital nomad thing and in the aftermath of being grounded, as well as what are my plans for what's next. So some of the things I learned about the digital nomad reality is that when you are working for a 9 to 5 in the US, right, or whatever typical business hours are for another company and trying to digital nomad, there are a couple of challenges. One, of course, time zones. I made my peace with this because I tend to be a morning person, and I loved it when I was in Europe, having my mornings to explore and do whatever I wanted and sort of pour into myself, and then log on to work at like 3 or 4 p.m. and work for the evening hours. What I hadn't considered, though, is that working every night meant I was really limited in terms of being able to socialize with people. Most people are working 9 to 5 where I am. They want to go to dinner, they want to meet up, they want to, do something on weeknights, but I never could because I was working every weeknight. The other thing is, because I'm a morning person, I like to get my day started early. It was really difficult for me to work until midnight every day. And the other thing that I really did not see coming, but maybe I should have, because I was traveling and also sharing things on my social media. I've had my travel blog since 2016. I have a travel Instagram account. It was my hobby for many, many years before it became anything more than that. And I don't recommend this, but people who I worked with followed me on Instagram. I know it's different based on different age groups, but I personally don't recommend that. But what I ran into was essentially some envy. Envy and some, why is she doing that? Why is she living that lifestyle? Why is she posting to Instagram? Oh, is she posting to Instagram while she's working? These kinds of things started to surface and only further solidified for me how little I wanted to work in a company where I was beholden to anybody else, because now you're trying to talk to me about things that I'm doing in my own life. And granted, these people, I get it. It looks exciting and fun when someone is traveling and also working, but they were pursuing their own dreams of getting married and starting families and buying homes, and my life just looked different. But it did cause some of this sort of weirdness and some uncomfortable conversations at work. So that's another reality that sort of came to light, that if you're not working for a company where everyone's on the same page and everyone is working remotely from wherever they want, is something to be aware of that might come your way too. Another important thing that I learned that might seem obvious now is that it was so much easier for me to sort of be benched, be sidelined from the digital nomad lifestyle, to then be able to build up my businesses and to just focus a lot of time where I just did that, right? Like if you are thinking, I want to start a business and I want to be able to travel the world, maybe those things will happen simultaneously for you, but you might find success, if you're not that way, in just first focusing on building your business. Save up enough where you can live off your savings while you're building your business, or take a job that doesn't require as many hours or as much brain power, so you have income coming in that you can live off of while also building up your own business and your income source. And once you have that foundation built, your operating procedures and the systems you need in your business from that foundation, then you may have an easier time doing the digital nomad thing and living wherever you want. A lot of these videos about why I stopped being a digital nomad are about, hey, the lifestyle just got to be too much. For me, I didn't really get to fully dip my feet into the lifestyle yet. And it's still something that I am wanting to do. The other big thing that I want to do, the dream I've had for my life for a long time, is to move to Italy. And it's not the time for me yet because I still have the family component that I'm navigating. So I'm instead focusing a lot of energy into continuing to build up my businesses, continuing to enjoy what I have in this season of life while still planting seeds for that dream, like potentially taking Italian lessons to get ready if I know that that's where I'm headed. Will I do the digital nomad thing versus this expat path of living in Italy? It had always been my plan to, but I don't know where I'll be at that phase in my life, how old I'll be when I feel like I can really pursue this again. But it's still a dream. And when you have a dream like this, it doesn't die easily. And even if it's not happening for you right now, and even if you got maybe a false start like I did, if it's what you really still want, I do believe in continuing to go after it. And that's my story, that's my path, that's my hope, my dream, my desire, and maybe one day that'll come to fruition for me. If I want it to, I know that it will, and I hope that it does for you too. If you want it to, just don't be discouraged by the bumps along the way.